things. I'd be walking around and I would hear someone speaking in Arabic. And that actually, I just want to go and say, hello, understand what you're saying. And minding that the Arabic language is like different, there's a lot of different dialects for it, but it still brings back home and the Middle East in general.
Yeah, language for me as well, like what Wawa said. I think food is a big one for me because a lot of my favorite foods, from the Philippines, I don't get to eat very often. So when I eat them, it's really special and it always reminds me of like home.
Your present?
Your present, yeah?
Yeah, I just believe it's an amazing feeling to carry with you, and it definitely brings back what you carry deep inside and how you carry yourself in everyday work, life, and how you affect the people around you, starting with your own children, your workplace, your community.
I think this might be a nice point at which to have Kaya recite her piece, Origin Story.
What they get out of it is, I think they love the food. They definitely love the food. I try and tie them in with our Egyptian hearty meals. And I also try and connect them with members of the community that share the same heritage, but also bring them up to understand the various cultures in Canberra and in Australia in general, and haven't been able to take them back home to visit their grandparents in Cairo. It's been a huge learning curve for them, and it's actually how I feel this will shape them to be amazing individuals that give back to their communities, their workplaces, and bring people into their worlds.
It's beautiful. I think that's, very honourable. Vesna, you have also raised a couple of children in a culture that wasn't the one that you grew up in. How did you manage that?
It was a challenge on both fronts, for myself as a parent and for them as people growing in an environment that is different from where I grew up.
Languages. How do you think that kind of connects different parts of your life and the different cultural elements of it as well? And is it important to keep language going into the future generations, even if you decide, or it looks like your family will continue to live in a monolingual place? What do you think, Marwa?
I definitely believe it's important to keep your mother tongue language alive. If you have come into Australia with knowing more than one language, it actually gives you, I want to say, an advantage because you understand more cultures. That's not something small. Some people take this lightly, like, you just know another language. That a lot of people will die to know a second language. Like, a lot of people are learning it because it actually opens up your mind. I try and teach my children Arabic. I'm not the best teacher. They need to go to an Arabic school to learn.
Sometimes it's easier when you outsource it. Kaya, what do you think? You speak a number of different languages in addition to English.
Yeah, it's really important to me, like in the future, if I have kids, I would love to teach them Filipino.
It's a country, a group of people, and even to various items that you possess. As a North African migrant, belonging is a notion that I struggled with a lot during my first year in Australia. I arrived in Canberra when I was 25 years old, in October of 2003. I was a newlywed bride, ready for the challenges of married life, living in a different city with a different culture. What I was not ready for was the sense of fear, rejection, and not belonging. This feeling stayed with me for a long time, while I desperately tried to find my way around the Australian way of life. Over time, it developed into an overwhelming sense of emptiness, and a feeling that there was something missing. This eventually translated into homesickness, missing all the simple things that were familiar, that I had taken for granted in the past. I especially missed coming home to the smell of a fresh homemade meal after a long day at work, connecting with my immediate family members and discussing the challenges of the day over a warm meal and a cup of black peppermint tea brewed the Egyptian way. Instead, I came home to an empty space. With my husband working long hours, I had a lot of time to spare, but no one to spare it with, other than the TV screen, which had become my friend, as I watched endless episodes of Friends, whilst wishing for my own friends to share meals, laughs, and good times. Where I came from, socializing was a big part of your daily agenda, as was getting together over a big family meal. It took a while, but I finally started to find ways to belong and connect to something other than the TV screen. My first step was going for long walks and treating myself to a cup of coffee after. I love coffee. I quickly formed the habit of going back to the same coffee shop, a popular coffee chain that ironically reminded me of where the friends on TV met. There I would sit and watch people, coffee in hand. There were the ones that looked busy, the ones that looked irritated, the ones that smiled at me, and the ones who were exactly like me, had nowhere to be and no one to talk to. This simple act of having a coffee in a public space surrounded by strangers started to instill in me a sense of belonging, and I started to understand people's habits and ways of life. As an added bonus, I also picked up some Aussie slang while walking around the shopping center chatting to shop assistants. Luckily for me, a shop assistant's role is to be friendly, which meant they had to befriend me, if only for a short time. That's the part I have to say.
Thank you so much, Marwa. I love your piece as well. Obviously, I love all of the pieces that are on belonging, but I think yours has a very valuable input, which is telling that transitional story from when somebody is a new migrant in a completely new world, new social world, new physical world, and how they find their way through it. I think that's one of the things that's a bit of a challenge sometimes at belonging, because I think it takes a bit of time to realize where you stand in your own world of cultural belonging and everything. Even if you stay in the same culture, but you move cities or you move to a new school for the young ones, it can take a bit of time. But I think that it's really important to find those ways and to reflect on them, and then to share those stories as well. I was wondering, your piece sort of talks about different stages of that transition. I think that first initial shock, and then having the homesickness, and then from what we hear today, it's a positive nostalgia that you have. Do you think that there's any way, I guess, how do you transition from that more painful, shocking time to the more positive one? And is there ways that nostalgia can actually hold us back?
I think homesickness can hold us back. Nostalgia actually pushes us forward because it makes us act on the feelings of homesickness. But a lot of migrants would go through the same notion. It's really taking the first step to get outside of your comfort zone and start taking positive action that will put you on the right path.
And you definitely do a lot of positive action with all of your wonderful events.
Thank you so much.
We're losing a lot from you going to Melbourne, but maybe you'll come back.
I will definitely will to hold more events in Canberra. I really believe in events like today that actually have the power to connect people and get people to understand each other better. We need more of them.
I think so too. Vesna, you would have had a similar sort of experience coming to a new experiences and nostalgia, and I guess just living in between cultures in general. What can we learn, and why should we be grateful for it? Marwa.
What we can learn is we need to all actually really value the person in front of us, no matter where you think they come from, what they know and they don't know. I think by having the kindness to try and understand that person and just get them to speak to you more, so you understand them more, and bring so they can bring in their authentic self. We can all learn something from each other, and it starts by actually listening to each other.
Sounds simple, but not always. Kaya, what do you think?
I think we can learn a lot about just being